All right. Before I get started, I want to get know my audience a little bit better, and raise your hand who know how to say good morning in Portuguese. Okay. Raise your hand if you have already tried pastel de nata. Okay. What about something more complex? Pastel de bacalhau. Okay. Surfing. Oh, cool. What about web journeys? Who use web journeys? Cool. Who don't use web journeys but plan to use them? Okay. Who uses web journeys today and has to troubleshoot them like 10 minutes a week or 10 minutes a day? Oh, just 3 people. Okay, so good. We have such a nice feature. But for those people who do use web journeys or will plan to use them, it's important to know some little tricks and tips how to make your life easier so you spend less time troubleshooting your web journeys. And for those who don't use web journeys today, it's important to know these little tricks and tips again, because when you start using them, you will do it better from the beginning. So again, larger version of my face if you don't see it well from back rows. And oh, the same short. What a coincidence. Oh, is it? Okay, and today I'm going to share lessons I've learned while building software and operating software that runs millions of web journeys a year. So we are going to do that by going through 3 items. We're first going to start to talking what are web journeys and why to use them for those who are not using them right now. And then we are going to classify types of failures that you can observe when you are running web journeys, so you will know how to deal with them. And then we are going to dive deep into the lessons I've learned. And just a quick recap, at its heart, web journey is a user interaction with your website. We simulate this user interaction, and the first web journey that you need to build in ObservePoint is the key business driver workflow on your website. So for instance, if you are in an e-commerce application, the web journey that you should build is the checkout workflow. If you are Booking.com, the first web journey you should build is the hotel room booking workflow. And by simulating the user interaction with the website, web journey does 2 things. First one, it ensures that website is working as expectedly, like buttons are present, forms are filling, data is submitting, and so on. And the second thing that web journey does is it ensures that your tags and analytics are working as expectedly as well. And these 2 checks can generate 2 types of alerts, and they are webhook alerts and email alerts. Webhook alerts, we have talked about them a bit during API integrations here, and they are a little bit trickier to set up because you need an endpoint on your server that will receive these alerts. So I just encourage you to talk to CSM. They will help you to figure it out. And email alerts are much easier because that's just a plain email. You can view it in your email client, or I've seen some customers redirecting these emails to their Slack channels. So if web journey is breaking, you will have a message in your Slack or a message in your incident management system, and so that email will trigger an incident and page someone. So there are different ways you can work with emails. And also, you probably have noticed that email is the primary way to consume web journey failures or web journey results today. Of course, you have an UI, but in ObservePoint, we think that it's a bit unfortunate that you primarily get results through emails and you don't have ability to look at many web journeys at once. I mean, many web journey runs at once. But we are actively working on a feature that will give you ability to look at many web journey runs at once and see all their statuses, all their dates, all their rule failure counts, action failures, and so on and so on and so on. So watch out for new releases. Okay, I've seen and heard customers using web journeys for different use cases, just going briefly over them. First one is to continuously monitor the availability of your web commerce application. So web journey can do checkout workflow every 15 minutes, and if website is broken, you will get email immediately. Next one is ensuring that your loan application is submitting the correct data. Another use case is the most common one. I've seen and heard customers using web journeys to validate that tags and analytics are firing properly, and this way customer is ensured that their funnel analysis is working correctly because all the analytics is there. And these are just few examples because there's infinite web journey configurations that you can set up, and as of course infinite businesses, so it's very, very flexible. And speaking of these mail alerts, you get them when there is a failure, and there are two kinds of failures. First one is a true failure, and when you receive it, you have two news, good and bad. Bad news is that your website is broken for your users and you need to fix it. But the good news is that you have got this alert, and if you configure your web journey to run, for instance, every 15 minutes or every hour, it means that your website is broken maybe just for 15 minutes. So maybe no one noticed that, or just few users noticed that, so you can fix it as soon as possible. And there is also false failure. It means that something on your website has changed, and that's okay for your website, but your web journey can no longer run on your website. For instance, you removed a button, or changed the identifier for that button, or changed the form, pull it to a different page, and your web journey configuration doesn't know about this update. And here, during this presentation, I'm going to show you tips and tricks how to get rid of these false failures, and if it is not possible to get rid of them entirely, I'm going to help you how to minimize the time that you spend to investigate these false failures. Okay, let's dive deep into the lessons. So, rule number 1, don't create rules that test multiple tags. So, here's an example of such overcrowded rule. You probably don't see it well, but this rule validates Adobe Analytics tag, then Google reCAPTCHA tag, then data layer, then optimizely setup, then Google AdSense, and you probably see the little gray bar here. It means that there are more tags here. And I see such rules in every account, and probably that's it's sometimes useful to use such a rule, but at the same time it's bad in two parts. First part, it's bad for naming. How you are going to how you are going to name such a rule? Like test all the things, test all the tags. And if you give such a name to such rule, and you are not the only one person that uses ObservePoint in your organization, and let's imagine that your coworker opens such web journey configuration and see test all the tags rule. Like, what is this rule actually testing? Like, another person will have to dig into that rule configuration and watch this huge overcrowded setup here. And another reason is that when such a rule has a failure, you will have to make extra steps to investigate what have actually happened. Is it a Google Analytics tag which is absent, or Adobe Analytics, or something else, or is it a variable? Like, we are improving our web journey failures UI experience, so you'll get a better results, but still there is a way to do it better. And instead, you should create multiple rules, and each rule will test single tag. So here is an example of a beautiful naming convention that I found in one of the accounts. So on the far left, it says the environment name, like prod or shared. In the middle, there is a technology name. And on the far right, there is is it a tag, or is it a name, or the name of the event. So it's very, so each rule purpose is very clear just from its name. And this way, when such a rule fails, you have a very clear failure notification and very clear result in the UI. And from this example, it's very easy to understand that that's the optimizely tag that is missing, and the Google reCAPTCHA tag is present. Because otherwise, if you have the test all the tags rule, you will just have the tag is missing, and you will have to dig in. Okay, the second rule is don't create long web journeys that test huge workflows entirely or mix multiple workflows in one web journey. Instead, you should bias towards shorter web journeys that test a single point of interest, and it's better to have shorter web journeys but multiple of them. And I will give you an example how to do that properly in the next tip. And I'm an engineer, and I believe that there is exception to every rule, and of course this rule has an exception, and the exception is that you cannot apply this rule if your workflow is context dependent. What does it mean, context dependent? It's when steps in your workflow that happen later cannot be executed entirely without steps that happened before. So for instance, you are in an e-commerce application. You cannot go to the purchase workflow. You cannot enter cart details before you added items to your shopping cart. That's obvious, right? Also, you cannot enter a user profile without signing in first. So if you have such a web journey that has these kind of steps, then you cannot split it. But in most cases, you will be able to split it into shorter web journeys, and these web journeys will be simpler to manage. Okay, next one. You should avoid navigating using click actions. So here is an example of web journey. I had to zoom in a little bit more. This web journey has two actions here. First one is navigate to. It navigates to example.com website. And the second one clicks on a button that has a contact us ID. And as a website owner, I know that this second action, clicking on the button, will bring you to a different screen, to a different URL. So what I'm saying is that instead of having web journey with these two actions, like one navigation, then another navigation via click, you should navigate directly using a navigate to action. So here's the proper example. So just get rid away of that first action and just replace it with a navigate to that direct URL. So I was clicking on a contact us button that was bringing user to this example.com/contact us page. Just go to that page directly. That's obvious. And the reason why you should do that is not because navigate to is bad. It's because the more actions you have, the more moving parts you have, the higher is probability that something will break. Because these are just two simple actions, just for example. But sometimes you have web journeys that have more and more and more navigations, and if a URL is renamed, a button is moved to something else, your web journey will break. And you may think that there is an exception to this rule. What if I'm firing an analytics event when user clicks on that button? So again, there was a contact us button, and when user was clicking on it, we were bringing user to that page. And you say, I want to ensure that my analytics is firing when user clicks on contact us button. So in this case, you should have two web journeys. First web journey will do exactly what I told you not to do. Navigate to your web page, home page, and then click on that button and test that analytics is firing using a rule. That's it, nothing else in this web journey. And the second web journey just picks up from where the first left, from the contact us page, and keeps on the flow. So this way you will have two web journeys, right? But at the same time, the first one will be very short and very simple. It will only test that analytics event during contact us button click. And the second one will validate the rest of the workflow. These both web journeys will be easier to troubleshoot, and remember, single point of interest. And there is a real exception to this rule, and that's when your application doesn't have a deep links. So let's imagine that this contact us button doesn't bring user to another page, but instead it shows up a model, and this model has a form. And deep links mean that you can bring a user to a particular UI part from anywhere else, and maybe your website doesn't have them. You are not concerned about SEO. In this case, that's the exception for this rule, and you will have to click around to navigate over a website. And rule number 5, don't ratchet up wait times. What I mean by ratcheting up is that you have an action that is waiting for some tag to fire, and you see that rule that validates this tag presence is failing. So you just increase wait time for this action. And you run this web journey again, and tag is still not firing. So you increase wait action again, wait duration again, and you run again, and increase and run, and that's just, you go down to the pit. And consider wait times to be bad things for such a debugging. And of course, for those who don't know, there are two ways of adding wait time to your web journey action. First one is using the built-in feature. There's a little box here where you can enter a number of seconds to additionally wait after action execution. And the second one, you can write a custom JavaScript action that uses some JavaScript capabilities to add wait time. Here you can see that there is a set timeout. This is a standard JavaScript function, and this is used to execute action in 10,000 milliseconds, so basically in 10 seconds later. That's exactly the same. That's very similar to what we had in previous action. And what you should do instead of ratcheting up these wait times, you should trust observer points for waiting for network silence. So network silence, what is it? It's not the silence that we have it here today. It's a different thing. When observer point executes an action in a web journey or in an audit, it waits for the network request to settle up. It's basically, there are many background things happening in your website, and this could be different kinds of requests. And of course, you will not wait forever until your website just dies. We look after each action execution, we look at every request, and we try to classify these requests. And there are two kinds of requests that we observe. First one, they are heartbeats. Basically, these are the repeating requests that do not affect the functionality of your website. And we quickly identify such requests, and we don't wait for them to stop, because we know that they will never stop. And the second kind of requests are something that will actually influence your website, and it means that they are worth observing further. So we executed an action, and then we look at all network requests passing by. And if we see that this is the same person, the same network request passing over us, we will just ignore it. If it is a network request that never happened before, we'll know that something interesting is happening, maybe analytics firing, and we will wait extra time after executing this action without extra wait time configuration. So there is an exception to this rule, of course. And the exception is that sometimes you have to configure analytic events that will fire after some delay. So let's imagine that you are an e-commerce application and you have a checkout workflow. And you want to track if your users are confused with your workflow, because there are probably many options, many configurations there. And you define that user is confused if he's not proceeding down with the workflow for more than, for instance, 2 minutes or 5 minutes. And you have a condition on your website, and this condition triggers, like user is not proceeding or is moving on the same page, and it will fire an analytics tag. So again, there is a very valid use case, and in this case, that's the proper way to use wait time feature in observer point. Just add number of seconds you have in that threshold and add the rule. Rule number 6, don't assume dynamic content is static. That's one of my favorite rules, because that's the case when an engineer has to stand on the soapbox and explain how the world complicated is and how the rule is complicated. And before I do that, I want to make sure that everyone understands the difference between dynamic and static content. First is obvious, like static content is the one that doesn't change, like it will be always the same on your website. And dynamic content will change. That's very obvious, but what is not obvious is that it's very hard to distinguish what content will remain static and what content will remain dynamic just by looking at your page. And you may be surprised with the examples of dynamic content that I'm going to give you. So here are the examples: A/B testing tools and other personalization engines. You probably have heard about tools like Optimizely or LaunchDarkly. They change the content of the website or change the appearance of the website when a user comes from a different browser or a different region or a different time of a week, or based it on feature flags on backend, or based it on randomness and so on. And these tools are bad for web journeys actually, because they will change the website in an expected way for web journey, of course, and it may break the web journey. So you should avoid making web journey facing these tools. And for instance, you are an air carrier company, and your web journey is booking a flight, and sometimes it happens in the real world that flight routes are discontinued. For instance, a few years ago there was a volcano eruption in Iceland, and it just stopped all the air traffic between the European Union and the United States. So if your web journey was checking such air flight bookings, it will be broken for multiple days or weeks. Next, hotels. Rooms can be fully booked, and if your web journey is testing room booking, it will be stopped. For instance, this year there was a solar eclipse, and it was happening in the United States. So all the hotels across many that were on the path of the solar eclipse, they were just overbooked, and so web journeys that were booking rooms were broken for days or weeks. Then seasonal products become available or become unavailable, like summer sales, Christmas sales, Black Friday sales, Mother Days. Like these will be kind of a featured products on your website. They can change the order of items, and if your web journey is looking for a particular item, that item can disappear from the top result or from the first page. Same with price changes, of course, and same with popularity. People that you never heard of will for some reason will start interacting with some content on your web page, on your website more, and it will move your item that web journey is checking for to a next page, and your web journey will be broken. Or daylight saving time. If ChatGPT is telling the truth, Iceland and Turkey are the two countries that do not follow the daylight saving time change. And it means that there could be an event scheduled in one of these two countries, and your web journey is checking for this event from a different country. And in the end of April or in the end of October, your web journey will have a 1-hour shift, and it may be broken as well. So basically, the reality is that there are a lot of little gremlins trying to infect our web journeys and break them, and our goal is to make life harder for them and easier for us. So instead of assuming and crossing your fingers saying that, okay, I hope that this item will always be available on my website, you should establish test products and test facilities instead of using the real ones. And the good news is most likely your engineers that built your website already have them, because they are very common for testing. And if it is not possible to do that, use these test facilities, you will have to compensate. So test facilities is like a special product that has a special name that can be found only by inputting some special string into text search or some special ID, and it will never appear for real users, but it will always appear for your web journey. And by compensating, I mean you need to create actions in web journeys that detect dynamic content or presence of this content or absence of this content, and tell you in a very specific predefined way that something is happening in a different way, and you will know that for sure. So here's an example of such action with a precondition. So let's imagine that you are an e-commerce application and you have a button or a text saying that how many items left in your store for pickup. And if there are no items in the store left, this button will disappear, but another button will appear that will tell how many items to order for shipment. So my web journey relies on the presence of the first button to pick up in the store. So I want to make sure that my web journey will fail in an unexpected way when there are no items left. So here you can see that this is a JavaScript action, and I'm looking for a button or an element with ID pickup quantity here. And if this element is not present, I am throwing an error. Precondition failed, store is out of item. And this is the error that you will get. In email or in UI, it will say error, precondition failed, store is out of item. Just by having a glimpse on this error, you will immediately understand that everything is fine with your website. It's just the item that I was using for web journey is not available on my website. Next one, don't use unreliable selectors. Many of our actions, they are clicking on elements, on buttons, filling out forms, and so on. They use selectors for that. And what is good is that it is very easy to get these selectors from a web browser. You just open WebTools and find an element you are interested in, and click copy selector here, right? It's simple, it's easy. But unfortunately, sometimes you get something like this. And I cannot explain what is this because even I don't understand how it works. And the bad thing is that in most cases, selectors that you get by this default way, like copy selector, they are unusable and you should avoid them. And usually there is always a better selector that you can embed into your web journey configuration. So here are the examples of unreliable selectors that you should avoid. First one, button. Like, what's wrong with that button? the issue with this selector is that it will break when you add another button on your website. That's obvious. So if you were relying on a page that it will always have one button and this selector will look for it, when there is another button, especially before this one, your web journey will start clicking on the wrong button. Next one, parent and child. So here, this selector works this way. It's looking for an element with shopping CSS class, and then directly inside this shopping element, it looks for an anchor tag, a link, with by CSS selector. And the issue with that selector is that it implies the direct parent and child relationship between these two elements. It means that this anchor tag must be directly inside the shopping. And it's very common for front end to be rebuilt in a way that it changes the level of nesting. So today it's directly inside shopping. Tomorrow it's like 3 levels deep. It's still inside, but this selector will break because it requires items to be right next to each other. Then the styles. Your website styling is important for your users, but your web journey should not rely on style. So if your web journey is looking for a green button on your website, tomorrow this button will become yellow or red and web journey will break because it relies on a CSS class saying that button is green. Or web journey should not rely on text formatting or something like that because you're testing the functionality of the website, not the way how it looks like. And child selector. So it's very common to use these selectors to find items in the drop-down menu, for instance. And it's unreliable because your items can be reordered or there could be new items. For instance, this one was looking for the top item in the drop-down, and if you add another item to that drop-down and it appears to be first, then your web journey will be picking a wrong option. And the last one, something that looks random. If you see something that looks random, most likely it's not the developer that wrote this ID, it's the software that developers use, generated this ID. And these IDs are generated, and it means that they can be regenerated, and your web journey config will break. I need water. And here are examples of better selectors. First one is child, very similar to the one that we saw before, parent and child, but this one doesn't have an arrow here. It means that this anchor tag can be located in any nesting level under this shopping element. It's still not great because this link can be moved out of this shopping, but it's better. Next one is the selector that looks for a button with a specific buy text on it. It's better than looking for abstract button, right? But at the same time, text on the button can change. Today it's buy, tomorrow it's buy now. One day more it's buy with discount, and your journey config will break. Then this one, that's a pretty reasonable choice because this selector is looking for an anchor tag, basically a link with a specific URL in it. That's a good choice, but still, URLs can change, and this selector will break. So here are the examples of reliable selectors. The best selectors are identifiers, and they will look like this. And they are globally unique, they rarely change, and if some element has a specific identifier, it means that the developer put it for a specific reason, so it will be there. The second best selector is to use selectors that were specifically designed for this kind of tests. The first one is the data test ID. Please note that there is no dash between test and ID, and that's for purpose. That's the naming convention that exists in the web industry. But if you need to work with your developers, maybe they use some different naming convention here. So this kind of selector is usually used to find a single element, and there is one more, which is called data test class, and this is used to find multiple elements, of course. And naming conventions, as I said, they vary, and in your organization, data test ID may be having GIFN or having a different name, so you should work with your website engineers, and they will tell you what data selectors they have available or what IDs they have available, and Usually, they use them for testing because it's very common for web engineers to use these selectors for their unit testing, like before they release. So they will maintain them, they will keep them stable, and you can just benefit from the work that they, from the efforts that they put into their testing. And of course, there are exceptions sometimes. Sometimes you don't have a choice, like your engineers don't have unit tests or they don't have elements covered with these specific selectors. And again, you need to use precondition strategy, I mentioned before, and do assumptions, and testing these assumptions, like is the pickup quantity button available or not? If it is not available, if I cannot find an element, just throw an error. The error that you understand. These are the primary ones, and there are 3 more, but they are shorter. And rule number 8, don't assume your security infrastructure will not block observer point. It happens so many times. Observer point uses automated browsers to do the scans, right? And observer point doesn't try to hide its identity, like it doesn't try to pretend to be a human. And so we do that to keep our reputation in the industry. So systems and people know that we are observer points. We are not a malicious scanner or bot. But sometimes, but at the same time, it makes us easier to identify because there will be observer point string in user agent. And sometimes we're still getting blocked by automated systems that do not know who is observer point. So what you should do, you should work with your teams that are responsible for configuring these tools to add observer points into appropriate allow lists. And there are different tools in the industry that can block observer point. They can be firewalls, CDNs, A/B testing tools, and so on. And unfortunately, I cannot tell you exactly what the tool you're using because I don't know. And unfortunately, I cannot even tell you what is the name of the team that you should work with because in different organizations, teams are named differently. Sometimes they're called IT team, DevOps team, infrastructure team, security team, and so on. But I trust you, you know your organization, and if you don't know how to explain the issue you have to your organization, our CSMs can always help you. And there is only one exception to this rule. If you don't like reliable web journeys, you can ignore it. Rule number 9, don't schedule all of your web journeys to run at the same time. I've seen this sometimes happening. Customer can have hundreds of web journeys, and on the main screen they just select all of them and click run now, and it will be a terrible tragedy to make the tool that you are using for your website testing to bring your website down. And so instead of doing that, you should stagger your web journeys to run at different times so you don't create a heavy load on your website. And there used to be a reason for this. It was easier previously to configure all your web journeys to run at the same time or to run them immediately, but we are actively working on a feature that will make this coordination much easier. You will have a calendar view where you will see your web journeys and audits, where they are scheduled to run, what are the past runs, future runs for them, and it will be much easier to manage and spread your web journeys and audits across different times of the day or the week. And rule number 10, finally, don't click on everything on your page using web journey. So I've seen that happening sometimes, like there are many items on your web page and you have like dozens or hundreds of actions in web journey, and every action is just clicking on something to check if there are analytical events firing properly. The problem with such web journey is that it's very hard to maintain because, as I said, the more moving parts, the higher probability that something will break. The element disappears, the rest of the web journey is no longer runs. So instead, you should work with the CSM and implement our patented Click All Plus solution. And it will not be a web journey, it will be audit, but it will show you in a much better way the results of clicking on every item on your site. And I could not come up with a good reason why not to do that, so there is even an exception to every rule having an exception. And that's it. These are the 10 best practices and corresponding bad practices. And I hope that you will take these tips and bring them to your work. And the reason why I'm so passionate about these kind of rules, how to build web journeys, is because the time you spend on debugging your web journey or debugging your website, you better spend on driving your business, driving your KPIs, and maintaining your work. And of course, bonus rule, use web journey support. So don't hesitate, there is a support drop down at the bottom. It takes you to the web journey support request form. You have seen this form yesterday, I believe, during the presentation. It also mentions that you have 10 support requests in a month, but don't hesitate to use them. We very rarely see customers exceeding this limit. So our CSMs, our support team, will help you to build new web journeys or fix existing ones, and it will make your life easier. And that's it. I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
All right, are we sure no questions? Going once. Going twice.
Maybe you don't have a question, maybe you have a counterexample to a rule, maybe a valid unless that I didn't share. Like I tried to do that and it didn't work.
Earlier on you talked about don't make it wait continually, building up the sort of 10 seconds. Is there an amount of time that you would say is acceptable? Because I know you're obviously saying wait for the silence, but on our stuff we just never seem to see that. So we don't have like 30-second waits, but we are putting some in. Is there a sort of a limit that you'd say is acceptable before it's really not best practice at all?
As always, it depends on your website. If I say 10 seconds today, it may be fine for your website, but for a different website, it can be a bad limit here. But usually just apply common sense, and maybe if you are waiting for some tag to fire after your action and it doesn't fire in 10 seconds, maybe you just misinterpreted how your website works. Maybe it's actually firing after the next action, or it doesn't tie to some time at all.
Thank you.
Can I also offer an answer to this one?
Sure.
This is the most common thing we see that people do when they have a failing web journey. And in my experience, it usually doesn't help. Maybe you've had a different experience. But one thing to be aware of is ObservePoint already adds 8 seconds of wait time after every action today anyway. So if you are adding more, you're just adding on top of the 8. And I'd say for most people, if your action isn't causing the tag event or whatever network activity to happen after 8 seconds, it's probably never going to happen. And so probably it's just slowing down your journey, but not giving you benefit. One more thing, probably early next year, we intend to add a feature to web journeys and audit actions that will allow you to specify a condition to wait for. Instead of a fixed amount of time, you can say something like, wait for this thing to appear on the page, or wait for the next page to appear, up to a maximum amount of time. That way your journey will run as fast as it can, because you'll tell ObservePoint, here's what I'm really waiting for.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Is there any way to not do the 8-second wait?
Yes.
So people navigate faster than...
Yeah, good question. Oh, do you mind if I answer that one?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, just taking over. It's my time. Can you turn off the 8-second wait? Today, no, but we would like to get rid of that. We don't like the 8-second wait. It's not necessary. It's like a safety net in most cases, but it's, most cases the safety net is not needed. And so the team is actually going to be working very soon on more intelligent waiting, so that, yeah, we might wait up to 8 seconds if it appears that there's still a lot of network activity that you might be interested in, but we're going to shorten that a lot. We probably won't add a new control to the UI. We want to just do it automatically to make it go faster.
Why was it set at 8 seconds? What was the importance of 8 seconds?
It was the same rationale that led to this behavior over the last 10 years of product development. I'll give you a little bit of insider info. There was a time in the past, this is no longer true, that ObservePoint would miss some network activity and not report it. It was like 1%, less than 1% of the time. That has been resolved. That no longer happens. That's been resolved for years. But one of the solutions that was attempted years ago to try to address that problem was to add more and more wait time. Like, 1 second is not enough, let's try 2 seconds. 2 seconds is not enough, let's try 3 seconds. And it got up to 8 seconds per action over many years. But it turned out that was never actually a good solution to the problem. So it's like a historical, archaeological accident of sorts that we intend to improve in this coming year.
I want to add here that there are lots of safety nets like this, and they all exist because we at ObservePoint we are dealing with World Wide Web. Each website is different. Each website is behaving differently and sometimes incorrectly from the browser standpoint, but we still have to handle it.
Yeah, just one more second on that topic. One of the things that's really cool about ObservePoint is we have a team of people that, for fun, like to find weird website behavior and make the platform work with it. We've collected people like Yurii and myself and others who obsess over your sites to make sure the product handles it well, even when there's, like Yurii said, wild things happening. So we've spent many years, and there are probably hundreds of little things in the ObservePoint code that exist just to make sure the product works for your website, even though it does this weird thing that no one else does. So we've got a lot of that, and we're committed to doing that forever. So we want to make it work just as good as it can for everybody. Okay,